Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, a Spotlight podcast. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
Having local and convenient access to the arts is a major component of driving a vibrant community. And you may have heard that Lansing's in the process of getting a new downtown music and arts venue called the Ovation. Here to tell us the progress of this exciting attraction is the director of Lansing Public Media Center, Mr. Dominic Cochran. Welcome back to the show, Dom.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be here.
So how did the prospects of getting a downtown venue begin, just for those who aren't familiar? Because Lansing's got a big downtown. There's no concert hall. There's no theaters, and we've got one coming. So How did it start?
Well, I mean, I guess to go way back, lots of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with the Lansing Civic Center.
Yep.
That was a 6,500 person capacity venue. Okay. And when that was ended and torn down, it was at the end of its useful life. It was time for that building to either put a ton of money into it to update it, or tear it down, which is what happened. It was like 35 years old at that point, I think, which is normally the useful life of those kinds of facilities before they need a lot of investment. The plan was to replace that in two parts. So a lot of people, one of the big objections that people say is, what about the Lansing Center? I thought that was supposed to replace the Civic Center. That's true, but it was supposed to be a replacement in two parts. The Lansing Center was built to capture the convention business that was happening at the Civic Center. And then there was going to be a performing arts center built actually where the Stadium District apartments are now. That was going to capture the music component, the concert component that everybody has such fond memories of at the Civic Center. So the Lansing Center got built first, and a great facility to do that, event and convention type business for the city. And then the plan was to build a performing arts center. 2001 recession happened. Fundraising was a challenge. It's always about where's the money going to come from to do that kind of thing anytime you're talking about arts and culture. So it just didn't happen. And so the conversation has been kept alive for that long, over 20 years now. Mayor Hollister at that point commissioned a feasibility study as to whether our community would support a facility like that. And the answer then was yes. We have commissioned a new study now, and the answer does remain yes. In fact, that demand has grown, of course, as we all know anecdotally about all of us of all ages driving to Detroit and Grand Rapids to go see shows all the time, and taking our money with us when we do that.
Right.
So basically, the thing that made the conversation get very real was we actually identified a funding source that was dedicated. It's the PEG fees that the city receives in exchange for cable companies running in the right-of-way that belongs to all of us as taxpayers and residents. A portion of those PEG fees are restricted by state statute that has to be used for capital investments to build capacity for public access. So the fact that we can use that that's what you have to use it for. You can't use it to, fill potholes or hire firefighters, much to some people's chagrin. But to me, I look at that as dedicated arts funding, which is really rare and precious, So we had the idea of bonding against that revenue, the future revenue, since it has to be used for that. It seemed like a smart move. And that's allowing us to capture about $8 million up front. So that's when the conversation got really serious, once we had that kind of seed money.
So who were the early stakeholders and kind of, you're obviously here. So talk about your involvement with this. What's your role and kind of who is your posse that is helping you make this heavy lift? Yeah.
So my role is, again, this will be a music and arts facility, but it also will be the home of the Lansing Public Media Center. So we'll have a new facility there. If you're familiar with our facility on South Washington, 2500 South Washington, which is our current and temporary location, we have podcast studios, much like this lovely one that we're in right now, editing labs, classrooms. We have equipment for people to check out. It's basically a modernized version of a public access studio that you might remember back in the day that Comcast would run, or Continental Cablevision way back in the day.
Okay.
So that's something that the city operates now, as opposed to those cable companies, and that's a win-win, really. That's kind of the foundation of all this is, the cable companies never wanted to run public access studios. They just had to do it as part of their agreements with municipalities. So now we do that, and our motivation is not to do it as cheaply as possible. We just try to make it as great as it can be for the budget that we have. So So that's been a win-win for the citizens of Lansing, I think. And so that's what this facility will be. So we have our media center team. The mayor is very supportive, of course, of the project. And we have Shelby in the mayor's office, the deputy mayor, and me are kind of spearheading the project. So we are looking to build it at the corner of Lenawee and Washington, which is currently, it's a gateway to the city. So like when you get off 496, and that's the exit that says downtown Lansing.
Right.
And then you get off of it and turn right on Washington Avenue, and it's kind of empty, right? So you're like, wait, am I actually downtown? I thought I saw downtown Lansing on that sign. So that gateway has always kind of disappointed me as a fan of the city. You know, it could be much better. So we're going to totally transform that gateway to the city. This will bridge Rio Town and downtown. Right. It's got the location has a lot of pluses.
So who owns the land, and, talk about how that acquisition happens, and who's going to build this place?
That's the part, we're right in the middle of that right now. So the current person who, the entity who owns the land are the people who are building all the apartments on the other parts of that block, the old Lake Trust headquarters, the apartments, the brand new ones on Capitol Avenue. It's Westpac, I believe, is the company that owns those. So, and they're doing a great job with those apartments. So they're going to fill them with potential fans and users of the Ovation.
Right. Hopefully that'll be a benefit to be next to a concert hall, right?
Yep. So the parcel that we're building on belongs to them, and we're currently in. I think we have a signed purchase agreement, but we're at terms. We just have to execute that. And then once we formed a new Act 31 organization called the Lansing Public Media Authority. That will be the entity that actually oversees the development and construction.
Got it. And are you going to be repurposing any kind of an old building, or is it going to be a ground up built the way you want it?
It's kind of cool because it's really a hybrid adaptive reuse and new construction project. So if you look on that block right now at 520 South Washington, there's one building on that entire block, and it's a lonely little brick building that used to be called the Lansing Credit Exchange. And that building will be rehabbed into the new Lansing Public Media Center, and then we'll build new construction north of that all the way to the corner. Yep. So it's kind of cool that it's both. It's reusing an old building and new construction. So
what will the Ovation kind of consist of? What performances will you have? What won't you have? Like how versatile will this space be?
Yeah. So this is partially one of our great partners that we've worked with the people we hired to do that market and feasibility study. They're called AMS Planning and Research. They've got an amazing reputation in the industry. There are lots of these firms you can hire that will kind of tell you what you want to hear. AMS has a really good reputation for being conservative. They will tell cities this is a bad idea to do this. We went to them with the idea of what the original thought was. We wanted to build basically a smaller Wharton Center that had one of these seating systems that you might have seen videos for on Instagram, where you imagine the Wharton Center and then you push a button and in 20 seconds, all of those seats fold down on the floor to become a flat floor venue. So you could have the Symphony one night and Slayer the next night or something, right? So that was the thought, was to build something like that at a size that would be complementary to Wharton, not competitive.
Right.
And then possibly the Lansing Symphony Orchestra could be performing in Lansing. The issue with that type of facility was that it was going to cost $60 million, which we just can't do in Lansing right now. We don't have the philanthropic base here to build that kind of facility. So anyway, with AMS, they said, yes, if you can raise that kind of money, you should build that. It would be a gem of the Midwest, and it would be amazing. But we'll tell you that with our work that we've done, you're going to capture 75% or 80% of that same economic impact of building that $60 million facility if you just build the flat floor kind of rock and roll type venue, like the Intersection or St. Andrews.
Right.
That's what we're really missing in this market. Yep. And that's what we've kind of known all along.
Because we have the Wharton
or
Lion King and the orchestra, those kinds of things, right?
Yep, exactly. So it just became a really easy decision at some point. You're we can build this thing that's, a third of the cost and capture 80% of the economic impact. That's what we need to do. So that's what it will be. It's going to be a venue for music. It will be great for private events and weddings and stuff too, but it will be a 2,000 person standing venue that you'll go to see a lot of these touring bands that we're missing, the ones that people are going to Detroit and Grand Rapids to see currently, like 20 Monroe Live.
Right. venue. And I'm doing that all the time.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, and some of those markets are still like doing Tuesday night shows for things I want to see. And, and nothing worse than getting in your car in a parking lot at, 11:45 on a Tuesday night with an hour plus drive home.
And if only when you go to those cities to go to those shows, you go to the show and come right back. But you're not doing that, right? You're going out to dinner beforehand.
Right, and having some drinks and meeting buddies.
You're spending money, and that's money that we could be spending here in our community.
Right.
So we're the capital city. We have a major university right next to us, and we don't have this kind of venue. It's a little strange.
So from the performing artist standpoint, does a 2,000-seat new venue in Lansing, Michigan draw? Like, do you have obviously you've probably done some research that you will get the entertainers to actually put us on the map. Yeah,
that's actually part of the work that AMS does too. Is a lot of that. We've done sample calendars of the type of things that'll be coming. Some people bring up they've heard of proximity clauses, which some tours have like an agreement where they aren't going to stop in every city, because they don't want to overlap some markets. They want people to be driving from Lansing to wherever.
Right. To have one great show instead of having three.
Yep. So, but those proximity clauses are not ubiquitous. They're not in every tour. They're just certain tours and certain operators that use those. And the way the business works is that you establish yourself as a place that artists want to perform at, and you do that through experience and hospitality, which we have a whole plan for that. And they'll come back, and then those proximity clauses slowly go away over time. That's really the way that works, because they want to come.
Right.
They're going to start to realize, oh my God, we have Michigan State University here, that this is a base of people who are going to come here. So.
Exactly. And in our kind of quad county, now that they've baked Shiawassee into Lansing's MSA, got over 500,000 people. And, for those folks to drive an hour to Detroit or even drive 20 or 25, 30 minutes to get to Lansing, I mean, it's a pretty decent catchment of fans, right, that are going to come in.
And to me, like the big attraction for me is talent retention. So in my industry, which is a creative industry, when I have, MSU students or LCC students who are interning, I'll ask them toward the end of their internship or whatever, after you're done, are you going to stick around and buy a house, start a family, get a job here? It's a really tough pill to swallow for somebody who loves Lansing, but some people don't even take that question seriously.
Yep.
And they'll laugh if you ask that question, like, no, hell no, I'm not going to do that in Lansing. And on some level, you can't blame them. If you look at it objectively, they just are looking back on their last 4 years of their life, and they spent some of the most memorable nights of their college career were in towns like Detroit and Grand Rapids, because those are the cities that have those amenities that they expect. So if we're going to be serious about talent retention, then we need to have these kinds of amenities.
Understood. So you talked a little bit about the housing. So downtown Lansing is at a crossroads, kind of a conundrum. I think forever we've had an understanding of what the problem was, right? We've got government and then the government supply chain, as it were, right? Mm-hmm. Law firms and PR and lobbyists and all that stuff. So we had the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and then weeknights and weekends. Downtown Lansing's kind of a ghost town. So the solution is build a bunch of residential. So you've got that 24/7 population. Now the residential, as we've already spoken to, is coming. Yeah. We've got 3 or 4 new multifamily complexes that are driving people, and they're selling.
The ones that are done are they have waiting lists. Yeah.
But the pandemic has obviously caused now that all of a sudden the office users are gone. Is there any concern, or is that just noise that you just don't want to even hear? But
no, I mean,
it'd be nice to have it all kind of come together to get the performing arts venue, the residential, and then have this return to work actually happen in earnest. But does that make you nervous at all that the return to work has been slow?
No, it does certainly on some level, but the way I look at it, again, if you try to take your heart out of it and just use your brain, so it's really like our only way out almost is like to build these kinds of attractions for downtown, right? It's the way it's the way that we're going to succeed. Like we don't have a lot of options. But these are the options that we have. We have the options to build entertainment amenities. We have the option to build housing. Those two things together are really the key to success. So we have to, despite the fact that like on a surface level view of things, you're like, ooh, is this the best time to be doing this kind of thing? You have to look ahead, right? Because you can't just flip a switch and have it be there. So it takes 2 years at least to build this facility.
Yep.
So we need to be looking for that time when the momentum starts to shift and to capture it,
right,
and to really capitalize on it.
Every developer I've talked to says you want to build through a downturn, and have it go live as everything kind of comes back. So hopefully, knock on wood, you know, Lansing will kind of put all the gears together at the same time, right when you cut the ribbon, and we go to that Slayer concert.
Yeah, right. And speaking of that, like, it's really awesome timing the way it worked out. It's almost like we were working together, which we are in conversations with the people that have the Hall 224 downtown. Yes. The other music venue that's smaller, you know, the 850 capacity, that's a perfectly complementary size also. So like, and the timeline is perfect too. So they're going to be opening this spring, which means we'll have a year and a half minimum of them operating and kind of getting people like
training the public.
Yeah, like, I can go downtown and there's like great stuff to do. And I saw a great show and now the restaurants are here. And so that will start to kind of build that momentum, and then we'll really be able to jump on that with opening the Ovation, you know, in hopefully a little less than 2 years. So I think the timing is really great. And again, we're not working in silos with, like, we actually are talking to them.
Right.
We want those calendars to be complementary. You know, we don't have two types of the same types of music on the same night. I'm sure that the people who are operating that facility will be among the first to respond to the RFP of people who will actually help to operate the Ovation. Or help to manage that calendar. So there's a lot of potential to work together there. Same with the Wharton Center. A lot of people, I just want to say, the first objection people have is, we already have the Wharton. What's up? You know, we don't want to hurt the Wharton Center. Eric Olmscheid, the new executive director over there, we've been meeting for lunch every month, and he's super supportive of this project.
Sure.
He sees the vision that it's actually helping to build their future audiences at the Wharton.
Right. Well, that's fantastic stuff. So you mentioned the 2-year runway. We're recording this in mid-March of 23. So is that kind of the timeline that you're planning? And what where does it stand today? And kind of when do you think we're going to cut ribbons and have a concert?
So we probably, the construction timeline, if we break ground May or June of this year, is a little less than. It would be a little more than 18 months. So probably like soft opening and like donor events and like shaking off the cobwebs stuff would be like, December or January of 24, and then
5.
Yeah, sorry, December of 24.
Okay, right. Yep.
November, December of 24 for kind of the soft opening, and then just full force in early 25.
Fantastic.
That's a timeline we're super confident in. Could be a little sooner, but
right.
We'll see.
Under promise and over deliver.
Exactly.
That's my mantra.
Yep.
So how can people follow along, or is there any kind of social media or website or anything like that people can kind of learn more?
We're working on that. The mayor mentioned it at the State of the City address. We do have an FAQ up, at least, because obviously when people hear about this project, there are a lot of questions.
Right.
All of them valid, and I'm happy to answer it. This is my favorite subject, so my email address is right on that website. So you feel free to email me with questions, but it's theovationlansing.com. And currently that is just an FAQ, but we'll be launching a public fundraising component soon. And also there will be more information on there as well.
Fantastic. Well, we've been talking to the director of the Lansing Public Media Center, Dominic Cochran, about the Ovation coming soon to downtown Lansing. Thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks, Chris.